You know, with all the hoopla involved in Super Bowl 47 coming up, or in the Super Bowl in general, we tend to kind of get lost in what goes on between the end of the regular season and the start of free agency. But this is the one year I can honestly say where it's kind of been more talk about that than the playoffs. I mean, yeah, you got the storylines heading into the Super Bowl, Ray Lewis's last game, the Harbaugh brothers going head-to-head, the Niners could get a sixth ring, stuff like that. But we got some other interesting stuff going on. We have some news about the top overall pick in the 2007 NFL Draft and one of the greatest busts in league history, Jamarcus Russell. He is attempting a comeback. Yes, you heard me. Jamarcus Russell is attempting a comeback. When he came out of the draft, when he came out of college and entered the draft, I should say, he was 6'6", weighed 265. His weight ballooned to over 330 pounds when he was with Oakland, but now he says his weight has dropped to 308. I'm sorry, but that's not going to cut it. And besides, Jamarcus Russell, he has talent. Believe me. I believe somebody's probably going to get, overwhelmed by the arm he has. But, but I don't think any team should take a chance on him. Think of it like this. He's one of the biggest busts in league history for a reason. I mean, if you look at his game logs, I'm looking at him right now, he has 6 career games with a passer rating of above 90, and literally half his games has a pass rating of 68.2 or lower. And in today's day and age, if you're an NFL quarterback, I don't care if you're in your first season, that doesn't cut it. That doesn't cut it. I mean, yeah, we look at quarterbacks now coming out of the draft a little differently than we did 5-6 years ago, but still, you kind of have to be, a little bit more productive in your rookie year. You can't be that. And it's not like he had a reputation for being the hardest working guy on the team. He was a bum. He was lazy. He never did shit. You think any NFL team's going to take a chance on him? Hell no. Nobody's going to take a chance on that guy. Nor should they. The Saints have fired their defensive coordinator, Steve Spagnuolo. When Spags was hired by the Saints prior to this season, I thought, he can potentially make this Saints defense something pretty fierce. I thought he could make this team a team that has a pretty good pass rush with some bite to it. And I don't think I could have been more wrong in my assessment if I'd have tried. I'm going to give you some numbers this year. 28.4. That's the number of points they gave up per game. 7,042 yards, most in the league. They were 31st against the pass, 32nd against the run. 6.5 yards a play. 5.2 yards per attempt on the ground, and 7.4 through the air. All dead last. Now, you look at the anonymous Saints player that came out and said, Spags was a control freak, this and that. That does sound kind of right. That does seem kind of like that would be his nature. But the way I look at it, I think of it this way. Spags wasn't going to turn that Saints defense around. I mean, they've got some decent players. They've got the best blitzing safety in the league in Roman Harper. They have, they've got a couple of talented defensive linemen in Cameron Jordan and Will Smith. But that's pretty much it. I mean, yeah, putting it mildly, that's pretty much all you're going to get out of that team. I mean, you do have a pretty good inside middle linebacker in Curtis Lofton, who had a pretty good year, and he's still a young guy, got years ahead of him. But a big warning sign should be that the free safety of this football team, number 27, Malcolm Jenkins, lined up about a year ago in like this little scrimmage thing, just like, for fun, against a high school wide receiver. And the high school wide receiver several times burnt him. When one of the members of your secondary and your pro football team gets burned by a high school wide receiver, you should have some cause for concern. Now, going forward, the Saints in place are going to have to, make some changes this offseason to try to figure out where they're going to go. I mean, having Sean Payton back as their head coach is just, it's a huge, huge plus for this football team. Sean Payton coming back to this team is like an extra first-round pick. It really is. The impact that he has on that football team, you can't put into words. You can't. I mean, you look at the team right now. The defensive coordinator spot's vacant. They've been thinking about bringing in Romeo Crennel and Eric Mangini and switching to a 3-4. I think a 3-4 would do good for this defense. It would give them more flexibility, and it would give them a pretty good inside linebacker duo of Curtis Lofton and Jonathan Vilma. So I think the Saints defense, I mean, they were as bad as you can get last year. The only way they can go is up, and they will go up. Speaking of defense, the New York Jets are exploring a trade, any trade really, for Pro Bowl All-Pro cornerback Darrelle Revis. Revis, when healthy, the best cornerback in the league, but missed all of 3 games last year with a torn ACL. If the New York Jets general manager, the new guy they just hired, really is convicted in his belief and he wants to win, getting rid of Darrelle Revis has got to be one of the dumbest things you can do. What are you going to get for a cornerback who just came off a torn ACL? One of two things can happen. You're either going to get a couple of really good picks for him, or you're going to get a kind of average pick for him. Let me tell you something. Darrelle Revis will be back this year. He'll be playing well, and he'll establish himself once again as the best cornerback in the NFL. If the Jets seriously are going to consider getting rid of him, then they are dumber than I thought. And I've called this organization dumb. They have no idea how to run an organization the way they do in New York. You've got a quarterback who's an all-pro, and you're exploring a trade for him. Meanwhile, you have a quarterback on your roster you took in the first round 4 years ago that hasn't amounted to more than a pile of horse shit, and you're not considering doing anything with that. That's something I'm going to talk about a little bit from now, but it's just, it's kind of preposterous at this point. That if they're seriously considering trading Darrelle Revis, that's just dumb. Believe me, I would love to see the Steelers get their hands on him and start him aside Ike Taylor. Huh. And believe me, it's never going to happen, but love to see it. Yeah, I was talking about Sanchez there for a second. The Pro Bowl cornerback for the Jets this year, not named Darrelle Revis, a.k.a. Antonio Cromartie, is blaming the Jets front office for Mark Sanchez's failures. Now, believe me, when the butt fumble happened on Thanksgiving, that was the low moment for Sanchez, and I laughed my ass off when it happened. Let me tell you something. I have dissed Mark Sanchez. He had the worst quarterback efficiency rating in the league this year, by far. Most turnovers of any quarterback in the league this year, by far. And his numbers were not even really as good as Jamarcus Russell's best season of 2008. That's preposterous. However, Antonio Cromartie hit the nail on the head. And I'll tell you why in a second. Simple. He is absolutely right. There are 2 key names on this Jets injured reserve this year. Santonio Holmes and Stephen Hill. Stephen Hill, the young wide receiver they took in the first round out of Georgia Tech. And Santonio Holmes, the Super Bowl 43 MVP for the Steelers, who has been a magnificent receiver in the NFL, despite the fact that off the field he's a moron. But regardless of that, I'm just going to get straight to the point. Holmes and Hill are 2 very, very good, talented players. And when those 2 players played, and Dustin Keller, their tight end, was going, and they had, Sean Green running the football consistently, and the offensive line was blocking, I know you definitely can make an argument that Sanchez still sucked. But I mean, it wasn't like he was as horrible as he was made out to be. Let me tell you something. Is Mark Sanchez the worst starting quarterback in the league? No. Matt Castle's probably worse. Who else do I think I could put up there? Maybe Brandon Weeden, but Brandon Weeden's young. But Sanchez is... Here's the thing I'll give Sanchez credit for. You can fault him for all he's done in the regular season. In the playoff games, he plays pretty damn well. I mean, he's played 6 career playoff games, won 4. And his numbers in the postseason are actually fairly good. But that being said, does Mark Sanchez still suck? Yes. Is Mark Sanchez a guy who can win you a Super Bowl? In a dream world, maybe. But I will go as to say that Antonio Cromartie is right. And the Jets need to get him a talented player. They need to get him a playmaker. They need to get him a guy who can step up. And the guy that I see them going after in free agency heavily this year is Kansas City's Dwayne Bowe. Dwayne Bowe's a freak. You put Dwayne Bowe on the field with Santonio Holmes and Stephen Hill. Along with any other receivers they have, and Jeremy Curley. You know, really, that's not a particularly bad receiving core. That's one that could actually make some noise. Dwayne Bowe, Santonio Holmes, Jeremy Curley, Stephen Hill, and then Dustin Keller, tight end, and Sean Green, and running back. That might make Mark Sanchez an average quarterback. You know? Listen, I'm never ever going to say that Mark Sanchez is a really good quarterback. He's not. In the postseason, he's had some good numbers. But in the regular season, before he gets to playoffs, he's played like shit. Let me tell you something. If the Jets were to do what I said they do, bring in Bowe, get Holmes, and get Holmes back off injury, get Hill and Curley another year of development, and add Dustin Keller to their weapons, and re-sign Sean Green, that would be a better group of weapons than Ben Roethlisberger has in Pittsburgh. I'm dead serious. I'm serious. People don't think I could be serious about that, but I'm telling you, I'm serious. Anyways. So yes, Cromartie's right to an extent. Does Sanchez need help? Yes. But is Sanchez a quarterback that can win you big games? No. There you go. I said it. Speaking of receivers, I want to move on to another disgruntled wide receiver, aka the one for the tennis. No, not. Jeez, I'm going to get it right the third time. The one for the Detroit Lions, Titus Young. Titus Young, coming out of Boise State, was a pretty damn good receiver, but he's had off-the-field disciplinary issues. This is his latest tweet, and I quote, "Oh, I'm not done. If y'all are going to cut me, let me go. I'm tired of threats." Wow. This is all I have to say.
Bad pick, bad choice, Minnesota, much love, but I'm hating on it, man.
Now, that wasn't what I was trying to find, but you got the point. Either way, come on, man. I mean, really. Are you that big a dipshit, Titus Young? Are you that retarded that you're going to say that? Y'all going to cut me, let me go. Well, it's the same thing. Get your grammar in check. Number two, you have to understand something here, Titus Young. You've not exactly been, helpful. I mean, when you've shut your mouth and played, you performed. But when your coach has to joke about you going to get surgery, say, yeah, I'll get surgery if he shows up, that's kind of sad. It's pretty damn sad. I mean, you show up, you play your ass off. If you play well enough, they keep you and give you a contract. If not, you go somewhere else and try to find a big contract. Dude, seriously. His other tweet said, "Never needed the money. Give me $1 and ball and bet I come back. Hashtag Hall of Fame." He could go on to win 2 Super Bowl rings, be an All-Pro 5 times and a Pro Bowler 8 times. And because of this stupid shit he does, he'll never get in the Hall of Fame. Because he's a freaking moron. That's the one thing I hate about social media. What it does to these professional athletes to go ahead and post shit that they're not man enough to say in person. If you're a member of this organization, you have a problem with it, go take it up with the top. Don't go on Twitter because it makes you look like a coward. I mean, Titus Young really wasn't hurt the last half of the year. They put him on IR to keep his ass off the field. The 5'11", 174-pound wide receiver out of Boise State had a decent rookie year. 48 catches, 607 yards, and 6 touchdowns. But his second year, you know, it's marginally more productive considering the fact that he played in fewer games, had fewer touchdowns, but his yards per game went up. His yards per reception dropped by 1 per reception, 1 yard per reception. His receptions per game, his numbers, if you look at it from a statistical standpoint, he did better. But there's something you have to understand here, in that you can be as great of a player as you want, but if you are a pain in the ass to your locker room, in the NFL, unless you have to play for the Steelers and they're very lenient towards you, hashed cough cough Mike Wallace, Rashard Mendenhall, anyways, if you're like that, they'll get rid of you. I guarantee you, as great as Tom Brady is, if he was a locker room cancer, like guys like T.O. have reported to be, and guys like Titus Young have been, let me tell you something. Bill Belichick wouldn't have kept him. If Bill Belichick was the coach of the Steelers, and they had Mike Wallace on the roster, Mike Wallace wouldn't last a day, because he wouldn't put up with his bullshit. Mike Wallace is like, yeah, man, I deserve that $120 million contract like Larry Fitzgerald. You know what? It's just stupid. There's just so many prima donna wide receivers in this game. And it's kind of funny because the guy who Titus Young plays alongside is the complete opposite of him. He's a big, physical, fast wide receiver, Calvin Johnson, who keeps his mouth shut, plays humbly, and gives back. I don't get people sometimes. I don't get why, if you have a problem with someone, you don't just go talk to them. You have to go ahead and be, say stupid shit. Other news, the district attorney in California will not file charges against the 49ers wide receiver Michael Crabtree. This stemming, of course, after the sexual assault allegations from before the NFC Championship game with the 49ers wide receiver. San Francisco district attorney said this. After examining information submitted by police, he said there is no charges will be filed at this time. That doesn't mean he's not going to get charged in general. It just means that there's a 99% probability he won't get charged at all. It's funny. Speaking of charging and players of crimes and being stupid and this and that. I had a couple emails from people who listen to my shows that more or less wanted me to talk about Ray Lewis and his involvement in the murders in 2000, right after the Super Bowl, the Rams beat the Titans, or his supposed involvement. I know he's convicted of obstruction of justice. I did in my previous segment about Baltimore and Frisco and who to root for if you're a Steeler fan. Let me tell you something. I'm not even going to go down that path. Tell you why. Yeah, I know the murders are still unsolved. I know that. I know Ray Lewis could have a point of involvement. We're not going to talk about it. I'm here to talk to you about sports, talk about statistics, about numbers, how teams and players match up against each other, individual and team sports. I'm not here to talk about is this player guilty in anybody's court of opinion. In my court of opinion, there wasn't enough evidence to put Ray Lewis away. So, by my opinion, he's innocent. They had more than enough evidence to put OJ away. If they'll charge OJ, who had all the love, everybody loved OJ. Everybody loved OJ, and yet he still was that close to getting convicted of 2 counts of murder. They would have charged Ray Lewis. Guess what? They did. That's the most I'm going to talk about it. If you want me to talk about it any further, well, I'm sorry, you're barking up the wrong tree. If I'm going to talk football, I'm going to talk about matchups. I'm going to talk about how teams get better. What has happened to this team? I'm not going to bring the criminal and element into the sports talk that I do. If you like, you can just kiss my ass. I have a strong opinion about things. I say I try to be as unbiased as I can. I try to tell people the exact truth. I'm as big a Steeler fan and a Penguin fan as the next guy, but I'm as big a critic as the next guy. I love my teams to death and I will always root for them, but I will always be critical of them because I care so much and want to see them win. I'm unbiased. I tell you exactly what you need to hear. I don't hide the truth. I tell you everything. But if you seriously want me to start talking about law and politics in my sports shows, then you best not contact me at all because I have no desire to bring it up. I got like 10 emails from people wanting me to talk about whether Ray Lewis was involved in those murders. And I don't know, and I'm not going to talk about it anyways. I'm done. Happy to talk about something else, though. Now, coming up this weekend, because, you know, there used to be between the AFC Championship game and the Super Bowl, they used to have a week off, then the Super Bowl, and then the Pro Bowl. But now they're having the Pro Bowl the week before the Super Bowl, and they've been doing this for the last 4 years now. Now, I hate the Pro Bowl enough, but I'm gonna talk about that why in a second. But I want to talk about why moving it was such a dumb idea. Because all you have to do is look at the rosters now that the Niners and the Ravens have clinched a spot in the Super Bowl. For one, the Pro Bowl should be named the Reputation Bowl, because you've got guys getting in there that are bigger names than other guys that don't deserve it as much. Matt Schaub and the Texans made the playoffs. Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers didn't. You mean to tell me that Matt Schaub makes the Pro Bowl and Ben doesn't? And the fact that Ben finishes behind Andrew Luck in the voting when you look at how much better a season Ben had? Let's look at the rosters now with the Super Bowl in place. The Baltimore Ravens have 6 guys coming out: Jacoby Jones, Vontae Leach, Haloti Ngata, Ed Reed, Ray Rice, Marshall Yanda. Look at the Niners. They had 9. Navarro Bowman, Deshaun Golston, Frank Gore, Mike Upati, Alden Smith, Justin Smith, Joe Staley, Dante Whitner, Patrick Willis. Patrick Robinson. Now, if you look at the players that are taking the place of some of these guys, you know, for one, let's look at the list. I didn't think William Moore for Atlanta had a good enough year to make it. I didn't think Jarius Byrd out of Buffalo should have made it. I thought the free safety that should have made the AFC roster is Ryan Clark, for one. I mean, why the hell is Kyle Williams and Randy Starks in the Pro Bowl when it should be Haloti Ngata and Geno Atkins? And then you look at some of the guys that made it over guys that should have made it. Jason Pierre-Paul for the Giants had 6.5 sacks. Because he had 16.5 the previous year, people vote him in because they remember what he did last year, and they don't give a damn about what he did this year. Which is why I have a serious damn problem with the Pro Bowl. The fact that players show no effort is another thing, but do I think the Pro Bowl should be canceled? No. I just think they need to reformat it a little bit. And the first thing you do is you move it to the site of the Super Bowl. The second thing you do is you have it the week after the Super Bowl. So the guys that had to pull out for injury, whether it be the guys from the Ravens like Rice and, you know, Yanda and Ed Reed, or for the Niners, Ballman, Willis, the Smiths, seriously, they can actually play now. Because they ain't got to worry about this. They don't have to worry about missing the game and missing the chance to go, you know, play against some of the other best players in the game and measure themselves. They don't have to worry about missing that now. I know the Super Bowl is a billion times more important, but still, players like to go to the Pro Bowl and the Super Bowl. Peyton Manning probably doesn't. If Peyton Manning went to the Super Bowl and was named, he was already named the Pro Bowl this year. If Peyton Manning and the Broncos would have been in the Super Bowl instead of the Ravens, and Peyton had to pull out, do you imagine how pissed he'd have been? He was pretty pissed in '09 when he had to deal with that when he went to the Super Bowl with the Colts. You know, it's stupid. It's utterly stupid. And that's all from me right now.